The old woman begged shelter with her two daughters. What the mountain man did changed everything. The sky was a pale gray, heavy with clouds that promised more snowfall. Every step was a battle, each movement requiring every ounce of strength they had left. The village they had called home, the place where laughter once filled their days, was gone. The river had risen faster than anyone expected, sweeping away homes, livestock, and everything people had worked for years to build. Eliza's heart ached at the thought, but she knew there was no time to grieve. Survival was the only thing that mattered now. Anna, the elder daughter, struggled to keep up. At 12 years old, she tried to appear brave, though her fingers were turning red and her teeth chattered uncontrollably. Lucy, only 7, clutched her mother's hand tightly, her small boots sinking into the snow with every step. Her wide eyes were filled with fear, not just of the cold, but of the unknown that lay ahead. "Mom, how much farther?" Lucy asked, her voice trembling. Eliza glanced back at her daughters and forced a smile, though it felt more like a mask. "Not far now, my love, just a little farther. We'll find shelter soon." But deep down, she wasn't sure. All she had heard about the mountain man was that he lived alone, far from the nearest town, and avoided visitors. Many whispered that he was dangerous, strange, or cruel. Yet, desperate and out of options, she had no choice. She had to find him. The path twisted and turned between jagged rocks and patches of thin, frozen trees. Every so often, Eliza had to help Lucy over a log or pull Anna up from a small drift where she had slipped. Her own legs ached, and her lungs burned with each breath in the thin, frigid air, but she did not falter. She thought of her daughters, small, hungry faces, and the way Lucy had fallen asleep in her arms the night before, exhausted and shivering. She could not let them down. Hours passed, though it felt like days. The snow grew heavier, obscuring the already faint path. At one point, Lucy stumbled, tripping over a hidden root. She fell forward, landing on the icy ground. Eliza rushed to her side, brushing the snow off her small coat. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked, concern wrinkling her tired face. Lucy nodded but whimpered, tears freezing on her cheeks. Anna hugged her little sister tightly, whispering, "It's okay, Lucy. Mom's right here. We'll be safe soon." But Eliza had heard another story too, that once he had helped travelers caught in storms, giving them food and warmth until they could continue their journey. She prayed that he was the man of kindness she hoped he would be. By late afternoon, the wind had grown stronger, and the snowflakes were larger now, clinging to their hair and coats. The girls were exhausted, and Eliza could feel the stiffness in her joints growing unbearable. But then in the distance she saw it, a faint outline of a cabin, half hidden by snow-laden trees. Her heart leaped. She quickened her pace, calling out, "Hello, please, we need help." A tall man with a long coat and rugged features stepped out. His hair was dark and slightly unkempt, and his eyes, sharp and observant, studied them carefully. He said nothing at first, just stood there, watching. Eliza's heart pounded in her chest. She took a step forward, raising her hands to show she meant no harm. "Please, sir," she said, her voice trembling, "my daughters and I, we have nowhere to go. The storm of the river, our village is gone. We need shelter just for the night, please." The girls shivered behind her, and Eliza felt a pang of fear. What if he turned them away? The wind howled around them, and the snow began to pile higher. She had to try again. "Please, sir, we won't cause trouble. We just need a warm place to rest. We won't stay long, just until the storm passes," she added, her voice breaking. The man finally spoke, his voice low but calm. "You shouldn't have come here in this weather. It's dangerous." He paused, then gestured toward the door. "Come in." It smelled of wood smoke and pine, a smell that felt like safety after so many hours of freezing outdoors. Inside, the cabin was small but cozy. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, sending dancing shadows across the wooden walls. Simple furniture filled the space. A table, a few chairs, a small bed pushed into a corner, and shelves lined with jars of preserved food. The man gestured for them to sit by the fire while he added more wood to it. Eliza's daughters huddled together on a thick rug near the flames, their teeth still chattering. Anna whispered, "Mom, he's not scary. He seems kind." Lucy nodded, resting her head against her mother's arm. Eliza managed a tired smile. "Yes, my loves. Let's be thankful he's helping us." She turned to the man, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you. I don't know what we would have done without you." The simple act of eating and warming themselves by the fire felt like a miracle after the long, harrowing journey. Hours passed, and the storm outside intensified. The wind rattled the cabin walls, and snow pressed against the windows in thick layers. But inside, there was a calm warmth. Eliza finally allowed herself a deep breath, feeling some of the tension drain from her body. She glanced at the man who was quietly tending to his chores, stacking firewood, checking the windows, and cleaning the small kitchen area. There was a rhythm to his work, a quiet strength that made her feel safe. As night fell, the girls grew sleepy. Eliza tucked them under blankets on the rug and sat beside them, holding their hands. "We're going to be okay tonight," she whispered, almost to herself. "Tomorrow, we'll figure out what comes next." But something about this family, their resilience and hope despite so much loss, stirred something in him he had long buried: compassion. The night grew deeper, and the storm outside continued to rage. The cabin's small fire flickered, casting warm light and shadows across the walls. Eliza finally allowed herself to relax, feeling the exhaustion of the journey settle into her bones. She knew the road ahead would still be difficult, but for now there was warmth, shelter, and a stranger's kindness. And for the first time in many days she let herself hope. The morning light filtered softly through the small cabin windows, painting the wooden walls with a gentle glow. Outside, the storm had calmed, leaving a thick blanket of snow that sparkled like crystals under the pale sun. Inside, the warmth from the fire made the small space feel like a haven. Eliza stirred first, careful not to wake her daughters, though Anna and Lucy were already peeking from under their blankets, curious and wide-eyed. Eliza smiled at them, her exhaustion still heavy but her heart lighter than it had been in days. "Good morning, my loves," she whispered. "Let's have something warm to eat, then we can see how to get through today." Eliza watched him for a moment, admiring the efficiency in his work. It was clear he had spent many years mastering survival in these harsh mountains. "Would you like some breakfast?" Gideon asked, his voice low but steady. He did not look at them as he spoke, yet his tone was not harsh. It carried a kind of quiet concern. Eliza nodded, smiling warmly. "Thank you. That would be wonderful." She helped the girls wash their faces in the small basin near the fireplace, the cold water shocking but refreshing. The warmth from the fire made the morning feel cozy, a sharp contrast to the fear and exhaustion they had faced outside. As they ate, Eliza noticed how careful Gideon was with the food. He had set aside a portion for them, enough for the three of them, though it was clear he had little to spare. Each piece of bread, each dried fruit, was offered with consideration, showing a quiet generosity that warmed her heart. She felt a deep gratitude, one she could not put into words. After breakfast, the girls became curious about the cabin. They tiptoed around, touching the shelves lined with jars and looking at the tools neatly arranged along the walls. Lucy's eyes grew wide when she saw a small wooden box filled with colorful stones and carved figures. Anna picked up one of the figures, turning it over carefully in her hands. Gideon noticed, and instead of scolding them, he approached slowly. "Those are my carvings," he said quietly. "I make them when I have free time. It keeps my mind busy." His voice was softer now, carrying no warning or anger, only explanation. Anna looked up at him, curiosity shining in her eyes. "Did you make all of them?" she asked, holding the figure gently. "Yes," he replied, nodding. "Each one tells a story. Some about the animals I see, some about the mountains, and some about people I have met long ago." She wondered what had caused him to choose solitude for so many years, and she sensed there was a deep sorrow behind his quiet eyes. But for now, she was grateful for the warmth, the shelter, and the kindness he had already shown. Later, Gideon decided it was time for them to stretch their legs and move a little outside. The girls were hesitant at first, fearing the cold and the deep snow, but he offered his hand to Anna, then to Lucy, and they followed him out. The snow was thick, reaching halfway up their legs, but the fresh air and sparkling sunlight were invigorating. "You need to be careful where you step," Gideon said as he led them along a narrow path near the edge of the trees. "There are hidden rocks and weak ice under the snow. Stay close." At first the girls stumbled, their small feet sinking or slipping, but he patiently guided them. Anna, in particular, absorbed every instruction, repeating it to herself as she walked. By midday, they had collected enough wood to last through the next storm, and Gideon had taught them how to identify edible berries hidden beneath the snow. The girls were fascinated. Anna turned to her mother with excitement. "Mom, he's teaching us things we never knew. I think, I think we can really survive here if we need to." "That makes all the difference." Gideon showed the girls how to mend a small broken basket, letting Anna try it herself. She struggled at first, fumbling with the threads, but he guided her patiently, never raising his voice. By the end of the day, Anna had repaired the basket, her face glowing with pride. Lucy clapped her small hands, and Eliza hugged her daughter tightly. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the snow, Eliza noticed a change in the mountain man. He seemed lighter somehow, more relaxed. Perhaps it was seeing the girls laugh and learn. Perhaps it was the simple act of helping them, but she could sense a small warmth emerging from within him. He had been alone for so long, yet here he was, sharing his life, his skills, and his heart with strangers. Night fell and the wind picked up again, rattling the cabin windows. Inside, however, the family felt safe. Gideon had built a strong fire and the girls were once again curled under blankets. Eliza sat beside them, brushing Lucy's hair back from her face. "We are safe tonight," she whispered. "Tomorrow we will learn even more, and step by step we will find our strength again." There was a careful attentiveness in the way he moved, a subtle care that showed he was beginning to feel responsible for their well-being. Though he had chosen solitude for years, the presence of this small family was changing something within him. After dinner, the girls played quietly with the small carvings Gideon had shown them earlier. Anna asked him to teach her how to carve a simple figure, and he agreed, giving her a small piece of wood and a safe carving tool. She worked slowly, concentrating hard, while Lucy watched in awe. Gideon guided Anna's hands at first, then stepped back, letting her try on her own. By the end of the evening, Anna had created a small, imperfect but charming figure. She held it up proudly. Gideon studied it carefully and nodded. "Good work," he said. "With practice you will get even better." His voice held a quiet warmth, almost like a compliment he had not allowed himself to give in many years. Eliza looked at him with gratitude. "Thank you for teaching them," she said softly. "It means more than you know." For the first time in many days, she allowed herself to feel a sense of peace. She knew the journey ahead would still be difficult, but with Gideon's guidance and the resilience of her daughters, she felt hope rising in her heart once more. Gideon sat quietly in his chair, gazing at the sleeping girls. For the first time in years, he felt a small lightness in his chest, a sense of connection, of purpose, and of responsibility. He had chosen isolation for so long, but perhaps, he thought, helping this family was not just about survival. Perhaps it was also about healing, healing for them and healing for himself. Outside, the snow continued to glisten under the moonlight, the world quiet and still. Inside the cabin, warmth, hope, and newfound trust began to grow, quietly but surely. And for Eliza and her daughters, it was the first step toward a new life, a life where even in the harshest mountains, kindness could be found, and hearts could be mended. Days passed in the small mountain cabin, each one blending into the next with a quiet rhythm of survival and discovery. Eliza, Anna, and Lucy were beginning to grow accustomed to their new surroundings, but the mountains were still harsh and unpredictable. Gideon continued to guide them patiently, teaching them how to gather food, maintain warmth, and move safely across the snowy terrain. With each lesson, the bond between the family and the mountain man grew stronger, though none of them yet understood how deeply their lives were about to change. One morning, the sun rose, casting a soft golden glow over the snow-covered peaks. Eliza awoke to the sound of soft murmuring outside the cabin. She opened her eyes to see Anna and Lucy already dressed, peering out the small window with excitement. "Look, Mom, the snow is sparkling," Anna exclaimed. Lucy nodded, pressing her tiny nose against the glass. "It's like the whole world is made of diamonds," she whispered. Eliza smiled at their wonder. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. They had survived the storm, found shelter, and were learning to thrive in a place she had once feared. Slowly, the fear and despair that had weighed heavily on her heart began to lift. Gideon appeared in the doorway, carrying a small bundle of firewood. "The storm cleared the path," he said, his voice calm and measured. "We can go a little farther today, explore safely." "Can we, Mom? Can we really go out?" "But stay close to Gideon and follow his instructions." As they walked, Gideon began teaching them how to identify safe paths, how to test the snow's thickness, and even how to recognize animal tracks. Anna listened intently, repeating his instructions aloud. "Step carefully, test the snow, look for soft patches, got it," she muttered, determination in her voice. Lucy, smaller and more timid, held her mother's hand tightly, following each step with wide, cautious eyes. For several hours, they explored the nearby forest. Gideon showed them how to gather berries hidden beneath the snow, how to break small branches to make firewood, and even how to build a simple snow shelter in case of sudden storms. The girls were fascinated. They laughed when snowflakes landed on their noses, and Anna proudly demonstrated her ability to carve small figures from wood, guided by Gideon's careful instructions. By midday, they returned to the cabin with their findings. Eliza was impressed by their skills and proud of their growing confidence. "Look at all this," she said, examining the small pile of berries, branches, and carved figures. "You girls have done wonderfully. Storms can return quickly here." Eliza held her daughter's close, feeling the fear creeping back into her heart. Anna, usually brave and confident, clung to her mother tightly. Lucy shivered, burying her face in Eliza's shoulder. Gideon moved calmly through the cabin, securing the windows and reinforcing the fire. Despite the storm raging outside, he maintained a steady presence, his quiet strength reassuring the family. Eliza watched him work and felt a wave of gratitude. For all his years of solitude, he had chosen to help them, risking his own safety to keep them protected. As the night stretched on, the storm grew fiercer. The wind tore at the cabin walls, and snow piled high against the windows. Eliza whispered words of comfort to her daughters, rocking Lucy gently and holding Anna's hand. She felt a surge of admiration for Gideon. Despite his quiet demeanor, he faced the storm without fear, guiding them through it with patience and skill. In the middle of the night, a loud crash echoed from outside. A tree branch had broken under the weight of snow and fallen near the cabin. The sound made Lucy cry out, and Anna clung to her mother. Eliza whispered soothing words, but Gideon was already at the door, checking the damage. "It is safe," he reassured them. "The cabin stands strong. Nothing can harm you inside." Eliza stepped outside carefully, her daughters following, and marveled at the landscape. The storm had been fierce, but it had not broken them. They had survived, and in that survival, they found a new sense of strength. Over the next few days, the family settled into a new routine. They gathered food, chopped firewood, and learned more about the mountains from Gideon. Each day, their confidence grew, and the bond between them and the mountain man deepened. Anna and Lucy became more adventurous, exploring safely under Gideon's watchful eye. Eliza marveled at their resilience, feeling a growing sense of hope that they could rebuild their lives, even in this remote place. One afternoon, while gathering berries, Anna stumbled and twisted her ankle. She fell to the ground, crying out in pain. Lucy ran to her side, panic in her eyes, and Eliza rushed over, her heart pounding. Gideon was there immediately, examining the injury with calm precision. "It is a mild sprain," he said, gently wrapping her ankle. "You must rest and keep it elevated. It's not your fault, my love. You were brave and you learned something important today. That is what matters." His life of solitude had given him skills, but it had left him emotionally isolated. Now, with Eliza and her daughters, he was discovering a new kind of strength, one that came from compassion, patience, and shared experience. As the days passed, they faced small challenges: sudden snowfalls, slippery paths, and the ever-present cold. But each challenge brought them closer together. Anna and Lucy grew more skilled and confident, and Eliza felt a renewed sense of purpose. She began to see that survival was not just about finding shelter or food. It was about nurturing hope, teaching resilience, and building bonds that could withstand even the harshest storms. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, casting a warm golden glow over the snow, the family sat together in the cabin. Gideon had prepared a simple dinner, and they ate in silence, each lost in their thoughts. The cabin was filled with warmth and a quiet sense of peace. Outside, the wind had died down, leaving only the soft hush of falling snow. Eliza looked at Gideon, her eyes reflecting gratitude and trust. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything. You've done more for us than I could ever imagine." That is not easy after years alone. The mountains were still harsh, the world outside still uncertain, but inside this small cabin there was warmth, love, and a sense of safety that had been missing for so long. She realized that survival was not just about enduring the elements. It was about finding people who cared, teaching one another, and learning that even in the coldest, harshest places, hearts could be warmed by trust and kindness. That night, as the fire crackled and the snow continued to fall softly outside, Gideon sat quietly in his chair. For the first time in many years, he felt a deep connection to another family, a sense of responsibility that was both humbling and empowering. He had chosen solitude to protect himself from loss, but now he understood that helping others, opening one's heart, and guiding those in need could bring a fulfillment that nothing else could. And so, as the night deepened, the family slept peacefully, wrapped in blankets and the quiet comfort of shared trust. The mountains were still wild and unforgiving, but within the walls of the cabin, a sense of hope, resilience, and growing love filled the air, a promise that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The snow on the mountains had begun to soften under the weak warmth of the early sun. Winter was slowly loosening its grip, and the air carried a faint scent of melting ice and pine. Inside the cabin, life had found a rhythm. Eliza, Anna, and Lucy had become skilled at managing the cold, gathering food, and keeping the fire alive. Gideon's quiet guidance had turned what once seemed impossible into a routine filled with learning, laughter, and growing confidence. But the time had come for them to face a choice that would shape their future. The village below, which had once been destroyed by the flood, was being rebuilt. Other villagers were searching for survivors, and word had reached Eliza that people were looking for her and her daughters. The thought filled her with hope, but also with a tinge of worry. Would the life they had started to build here in the mountains end if they returned? And what would become of Gideon, who had grown close to them, if they left? Eliza sat by the fire, holding Lucy in her lap while Anna arranged the small carvings she had made over the past weeks. "Mom," Anna asked softly, "do we have to leave the mountains?" He noticed the seriousness in Eliza's face and the worry in the girl's eyes. For a long moment he said nothing, simply observing. Then he spoke, his voice steady but calm. "I have lived alone for many years. The mountains were safe, predictable, and quiet, but people bring life, connection, and purpose. It is time you decide what path to take. I will help you, no matter what." The snow was softer now, and the path clearer. Gideon led the way, pointing out hidden dangers and teaching the girls to navigate safely. Anna and Lucy followed closely, their small hands gripping his as they moved over rocky patches and icy streams. As they descended, the girls grew more confident. Anna spotted a safe route across a narrow ledge and guided Lucy with care. Eliza smiled, realizing how much they had learned in such a short time. The fear that had once gripped their hearts had been replaced by courage and skill. Halfway down the mountain, they encountered a small group of villagers searching for survivors. At first, the girls hesitated, unsure if these strangers were friend or foe. But Eliza stepped forward, raising her hands in greeting. "We are here," she called. "We are safe." The villagers noticed the mountain man standing slightly apart, his expression calm but guarded. "Is this him?" one of them asked in disbelief. "The hermit of the mountains." Yet he knew this was their opportunity to reconnect with the world, to rebuild lives that had once seemed lost forever. Eliza stepped closer to Gideon. "We couldn't have done this without you," she said softly. "You saved us, taught us, and gave us hope. We will never forget you." "You have changed me too," he admitted. "You have reminded me that life is not meant to be lived in isolation. Caring for others, sharing knowledge, and feeling connection, that is what makes life meaningful." For a moment he considered it, but then he shook his head gently. "The mountains are my home," he said, "but I will visit, and I will help you whenever you need guidance. That is enough." And now he could continue to be a guide and protector from afar, while the family reclaimed the life they had lost. As they continued the descent, Anna and Lucy ran ahead, laughing and playing among the patches of green that were beginning to appear through the snow. Eliza watched them, tears of joy brimming in her eyes. "Look at them," she whispered to Gideon. "They are strong, brave, and full of life again. We owe so much to you." Villagers welcomed them warmly, offering food, shelter, and smiles that spoke of shared relief and happiness. Eliza hugged her daughters tightly, feeling the weight of their journey lift from her shoulders. They were safe, surrounded by kindness, and ready to begin anew. Gideon stayed at the edge of the village for a while, watching the reunion with quiet satisfaction. Then, with a final nod to the family, he turned back toward the mountains. He would return to his solitary life, but now with a sense of fulfillment he had never known. He had given them warmth, safety, and knowledge, and in return they had reminded him of the beauty of human connection. As night fell, Eliza tucked her daughters into bed in a small house provided by the villagers. Anna clutched the small carving she had made on the mountain, and Lucy hugged her favorite blanket tightly. "We made it, Mom," Anna whispered, her voice full of awe and gratitude. "Yes, my loves," Eliza replied softly. "We made it, and we have each other. That is what matters most." He had spent years alone, wary of the world, but now he felt a quiet joy he had not experienced in a long time. He realized that true strength was not just surviving the mountains, but opening one's heart, trusting others, and showing kindness when it mattered most. The snow glistened under the moonlight, and the wind whispered gently through the trees. Inside the cabin that had been their temporary home, warmth lingered in the memories of shared meals, laughter, and lessons learned. Eliza and her daughters had grown resilient, brave, and full of hope, and Gideon had discovered that even the loneliest hearts could find purpose through helping others. In the weeks that followed, the family settled into the village. They rebuilt their lives, finding work, friends, and stability once more. Yet they never forgot the mountain man who had changed everything for them. Gideon visited often, guiding them through challenges and celebrating their triumphs. The bond they had formed on the mountain endured, a testament to the power of kindness, courage, and trust. Eliza often thought back to the day they had first arrived at the cabin, shivering and desperate for shelter. She marveled at how far they had come, from fear and uncertainty to hope and strength. And she knew that the lessons they had learned in the mountains would stay with them forever. That courage could be found even in the darkest times, that kindness could transform lives, and that love and trust were the greatest treasures of all. The mountains, once harsh and intimidating, had become a place of growth, learning, and connection. And for Eliza, Anna, Lucy, and Gideon, the journey had shown them something far more valuable than survival. It had shown them the beauty of human resilience and the extraordinary power of compassion. As the sun rose each day over the village and the mountains beyond, the family faced the future with hope, courage, and gratitude, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And somewhere high in the mountains, Gideon watched over them, proud and content, a silent guardian whose life had been transformed by the very family he had saved.